Well, good morning, everyone. It's a beautiful Monday morning, January 10th, 2022. We get together with our distribution partners most weekday mornings at this time, a minute or so before 8 o'clock Central, to review success stories, strategies, tips, tactics, but really we're here to support each of you. We have a shared screen here, so you should see the agenda for today's training. This is going to be a little bit more interactive, and I really need to do more of this. So we're going to ask each of you to participate here in the front end as we get started. So the topic for today's discussion is free money. And we're going, before we get too deep into that, let's go ahead and start with a review of the three sources of capital. We talked about this most recently last week, and we've talked about it different times before. The background on this is I used to work for the SBA through an SBDC's office, Small Business Development Center office, and worked under a grant from the SBA. Used to go out and do access to capital presentations. And one of my coworkers, his name is Brad, ex-banker, actually ex-bank examiner. And this is the topic that he loved to talk about, helping people clarify that if someone wants money to start or grow a business, there's only three places that it can come from. So let's get that straight right away. There's only three different options: debt, equity, or earned income. What I'd like to do is go through each of these just briefly. I'd like for each of you to take a moment and respond on the Q&A function. It's kind of like a chat function of Zoom, and then we'll discuss it. What do you think pros and cons of debt are? So I'm going to give you a minute to respond. Don't respond about equity or earned income right now. We're just on number one. And so I'd like you to respond what you think are pros, in other words, benefits of taking on debt, and what you think cons might be. You don't have to make an all-exclusive list, but I'd like some contribution from each of you so that we can go through. So I'll give you just a moment to respond. You can list just simply one pro, one benefit. You can list just one con. You can list several, but we're talking about pros and cons of debt, which is one of the three ways to get money to start or grow a business. I'll give you another moment or so to respond. Looking for your response in Zoom in the question and answer box. It's like chat. So what do you think is a benefit of borrowing money, or what do you think a detriment or a consequence? Okay, so we've got some good responses, and feel free to go ahead and put in. So some of you are contrasting it compared to the others, which is good. But on its own right, the pro, and this is something that Daryl contributed, which is right, it provides some immediate cash flow. So if you were to borrow money, and depending upon if it's a line of credit or revolving or installment loan, but it provides an injection of capital. So I'm with Daryl on that. Let me flip through here. Okay, David brings up a really good point on the con, and it's really where I'm wanting to go with this. Thank you, David. Is with debt, you have to pay it back. Now, have to is kind of strong, but that's the deal, right? When a lender, no matter what type of lender or extender of credit, is loaning money or extending credit, they expect to be paid back as agreed. And so David was, I think, the first one. A couple others, if you said it too, was, well, I've got to pay it back. And so that's correct. So does that mean that debt is bad? I would argue not, because what you and I have to do is separate personal and business. Dave Ramsey, Financial Peace University, other financial experts talk about debt being bad. But in most of the time, that's referencing consumer debt. Yeah, it would be better to not go out and borrow a bunch of money to buy clothes or disposable goods, right? Live within your means. But it's a very different scenario with business. It's very uncommon, very uncommon that a business can reach its potential without some sort of injection of capital. And that's called leverage. So I would argue that borrowing money is not a bad decision for a business if we have what? A positive ROI, a return on investment. That's typically what we see, that sophisticated and successful people, how they look at money differently than unsuccessful. Successful people say, okay, if I can get some capital, what can I do with it? And then what will it generate as a return for me? Is there going to be a cost of capital? There typically is. Now, I know our topic here is free money, and free money would suggest there is no cost of capital. We'll get back to that. But as David mentioned, there is an expectation that the debt would be repaid. And as Jeremy mentioned here, oftentimes there's interest payments or interest cost. So that's right. So debt normally will have to repay the principal, the amount borrowed. Often will have some interest rate, which could vary based upon the type of debt and our individual credibility. And also there can be extra fees sometimes. There can be lender-related fees in borrowing money. So there is a cost of debt. And so it becomes a bit of a calculation. Does that make sense? If I borrowed 100,000 or $1 million or whatever that amount would be, it's going to cost me probably more than 100,000 to repay it because of principal, interest, and fees. And does it make sense? Does it project out to be a good financial decision? A bit deeper, we have to realize that we have to be able to repay debt. Now, we'll have some clients that come to us and they'll want to borrow money, but they're stone cold broke. And so I'm not being insensitive or making light of anyone's situation. Don't interpret it that way. But think about how ironic that is. We had I think it was one of you when we announced that new guaranteed financing last week. And I thought it was so astute. This gentleman emailed in and said, hey, I'm interested in that guaranteed financing as long as it's a payment that I can afford. And so that's that's a good observation, isn't it? Because if we borrow money, we shouldn't borrow more than we can afford to pay back, or we probably won't be able to pay it back. So that's what happens if we want to qualify for a home mortgage or for a car loan, you know, those typical types of financial transactions that most of us enter into periodically. How much we can borrow for a home mortgage or how much we can get approved for a car loan, separate from our credit, is constrained by how much can we afford to pay back. And there's different calculations that different lenders have for different purposes. What you and I will run into are some challenges. Sometimes you'll have a client that comes to you, they enroll in the Access to Capital program. And what does it mean if you enroll in the Access to Capital program from a client's perspective? Well, they're expecting to raise at least $100,000, right? So through some combination, some sources, some tranches of capital. That's the promise we make, and that's in writing, and that's what they would expect. But how much they can borrow of that 100,000 or whatever amount they want, how soon, we have to go into it logically, saying there's going to be some constraints by how much you can pay back. So sometimes you'll have people that want to borrow more money than they can afford the payments on. And so, of course, that's a red flag. With our first red flag to the lenders, when we have our first tranche financing, we want to get all clients their first tranche or first round of funding as soon as possible. Almost always now, right around a week, 7 to 10 days. Could be quicker, could be slower, but usually quickly. Well, in some cases, they get frustrated with the amount of approval they get, or some people don't get approved for cash funding because they don't have the ability to pay any debt back. Now, you can game the system in some cases based upon self-reported income, but even with self-reported income, you know, we want to be honest and ethical and accurate. So debt borrowing money, in summary, is common and is typically a smart strategy for businesses, which we may view it differently on the consumer side, but we're not talking about consumer debt. We're talking about business debt, money to start or grow a business. There are pros and cons, more than what I've just referenced, and then you all had listed some others. But one of the most important cons of debt is it has to be paid back, and we also have to be able to afford to pay it back. And it's typically difficult, I'm not saying impossible, but it's typically difficult to borrow more than we can afford to pay back, because that makes us extraordinarily risky to the lender. And what does every lender or extender of credit want? They want to be paid back and minimize the risk. Another con of debt, before I move on, is to number two, is, as we've talked about before with the 3 C's, you have to qualify for debt. And some people overlook that. They think, oh, I don't have to qualify for debt. Well, again, if lenders and extenders of credit look to mitigate their risk, they're not going to just give out $100,000 to someone just because they signed up in our program. The individuals have to qualify for it. Now, what's to your and my benefit is different sources of capital have different underwriting criteria. Take the guaranteed financing, for example, which we announced last Friday. Can you and I help anyone get $20,000 of guaranteed financing without minimum credit scores required, without a credit check, without proof of income? Yes. What is it that makes that too good to be true? Because at face value, it's like, that doesn't sound right, right? Or sign me up for that. Well, what we know is that with credit builder loans, they fund differently than normal loans. Credit builder loans are kind of similar to secured loans. Not the same. A secured loan, you go into the bank, you give them $1,000 and they'll loan you $1,000, and you make payments and it reports positively on your credit. And if you don't make payments, then it reports negatively, but they have the collateral of the $1,000 pledged. Credit builder loans don't work like that, but credit builder loans are guaranteed approval, again, up to $20,000, reports on your credit, so it boosts the credit profile. But a credit builder loan is something that distributes after the payments are made, and that's how the lender mitigates the risk. Okay, so let's move on to number two. So what we're on is there's only 3 sources of capital to start or grow a business. We're thanking Brad for that. We've talked about debt, borrowing money. Another option is equity. Equity is often what we see with very large capital raises, but it also is a good option for those that don't qualify for debt. Now, you and I are technical advisors. We know that a lot of clients will come to us and they don't immediately qualify for the amount of debt that they want or need. And that's okay. That's not a problem. We don't need to filter those people out. As technical advisors, we help them improve one or more of their 3 C's so they can get approved. That's in essence what you and I do. It's not, otherwise it'd be like if we're a car repair shop and say, oh, only bring your car in if it runs perfectly. Well, why would we need a car repair shop then? People bring a car that's not running perfectly into the car repair shop to fix the problem so it runs better. Well, that's what you and I do as technical advisors. Certainly, we have some clients that come to us and all they need is the loan packaging, and we can go get their capital raise that they want and need. So that's a good niche, but there's a whole lot more people that don't yet qualify for debt, and equity might be a consideration. Now, equity can be a little bit more confusing because what the client is doing is they're giving up some portion of ownership. Now, I didn't say control because don't associate those as always related, but they're selling some portion of their business in exchange for an injection of money. And so depending upon how that equity sale is written up will determine can the client buy the equity back? Can they convert it into a debt instrument? How much control are they losing, if any, and so forth. So just to save time because we ran long on the first. So there are pros and cons of an equity-based capital raise. One of the primary pros is that often we can raise a lot more, because if we have a good idea that others want to share in the rewards of, they might be willing to put more money into it in an equity transaction than what we qualify for debt, because we have to qualify for debt, right? Debt is not a given. It's earned based upon the 3 C's: credit, cash flow, collateral. Now, earned income, which kind of turns more into our topic for today, is an option that many of the, I shouldn't say many, some of the clients that we work with overlook. Sometimes all that they're looking at is, hey man, I just need money. I just want that $100,000. Okay, well, let's build out your loan package and see what might be the best vehicle for that. Would it be a debt-based capital raise or an equity-based capital raise? In some cases along the way, they just frankly need some earned income, because what did we say about debt? Debt, we're going to need to be able to show that we can afford to repay the debt, because that's what the lender or extender of credit wants. It's very difficult to borrow money if we don't have the cash flow to service the debt. So my point here at this point of the discussion is, I want you to please feel more empowered than maybe what some of you are, because it's often that the root problem that a client has in being able to raise the capital that they need is that they have an absence or an inadequate amount of earned income. And you and I can fix that. We can help them earn income. Earned income is almost completely a pro, right? It's money that doesn't have to be paid back. It doesn't require you to dilute ownership or give up control. Now, the con of it is we have to do something to earn income, but can you imagine how ironic it would be for an entrepreneur, a small business owner, to say, well, I don't want to earn any income? Because when I was a college professor, and you may disagree with this, it's okay, but I was teaching, when I taught my principles of management class, it was early on in the class that we clarified, what is the #1 goal of a business? What's the #1 goal? It's to earn a profit. Because if a business doesn't earn a profit, it can't continue. It can't hire employees, so it can't create jobs, it can't provide benefits, it can't produce products or services. No profit, and of course there could be a ramp-up time or periods of unprofitability, but in general, if we don't generate profit with our business, it's not sustainable. It won't continue. And so we need to be cognizant that some of the people that we work with need help earning income as well. Now, I understand that generally they have a plan to earn income, right? They want to open a muffler shop or a bakery or whatever their business model is, of course. But if there's some barrier right now, I just can't tell you how often I'll have a client that says, you know, I can't afford to pay the first tranche. Des is on here, and Des and I were communicating over the weekend. She's one of our white label partners. So we'll use Des as an example. So she's got a client that has signed up, didn't qualify for any cash funding offers, which can happen. And so then we provided a debt alternative, a financing arrangement, and the client comes back and says, I can't afford that. Well, then our root problem is we're not ready to go borrow money because we have no ability to pay any debt back. You know, we shouldn't go buy a car if we can't pay the car payment. Some people will need immediate help earning income to be able to have any borrowing capacity. All right, so let's scroll down. So how can you go about helping your clients have more earned income? Well, they could just simply become a referral partner of yours. And some of you are doing great with that. You just let people know, hey, refer to me and I'll give you $100 for every person you refer that signs up, or whatever deal you want to make. That's between you and them. The other that we've talked about is you can become a regional vice president, RVP for short, Doesn't cost anything to become an RVP. There are no production requirements. There's not even a contract you have to sign. And as Zahn clarified last week, there's no risk or responsibility. So as an RVP, all you're simply doing is building a team of white label partners. It's not network marketing. It's not MLM. It's not Ponzi. You're not paying anything. They're not paying anything, but it's like any other successful business model. It is a layer in the organizational chart that allows the generation of income based upon helping others produce. So it may be that some of your clients have an issue. Maybe they don't qualify for debt yet. And they may or may not want to do equity, but every business should desire earned income. Am I saying that every business will want to be a white label partner? Of course not. Of course not. If their business has the ability to flip the switch and start earning income so they can repay debt, and frankly, even be more attractive to equity-based investors, then they should just do whatever their core business is. But let's take an insurance agent, for example. We have many of our white label partners who are insurance agents because this is a better door opener. Using access to capital to create a conversation with entrepreneur clients is a lot easier than saying, hey, let's talk about insurance. So certainly you can be aware that you can be a regional vice president if you want. It doesn't matter to me or not, it doesn't cost anything. And then as you have clients that are wanting, because what is the closest we can have to free money? Well, debt is not free money because it's money we have to pay back or we're supposed to pay back. Equity, it's not, it doesn't have to be repaid, but you're sharing in future profits. So there is a cost there. Free money is earned income. It's money that we generate by offering some product or service or good to a client. And so some of you are getting this and adding quite a few of your clients on as white label partners. Others of you don't want to do it. And again, it doesn't matter to me, but we can't ignore the fact that people have to have earned income if they want debt, because they have to be able to repay back that debt. All right. And so, and we had that separate training on Zoom where we did the financial modeling to see how much you could make as a white label partner. I guess that training's down here. All right. So let's wrap it up and then we'll get to your questions. So just to make sure we're clear, what is the process to become a regional vice president so you can help clients with all three sources of capital? Because as a white label partner, obviously we can help them with debt and equity. If you decide to become a regional vice president, which didn't cost anything, there's no production requirements, no strings attached. Now you can also help them with earned income and generate income for yourself as well. So you need to have a joint venture agreement. The joint venture agreement is between you and the white label partners you add to your team. There's templates available. You can get on Rocket Lawyer or Law Depot or other places through Legal Shield if you're a member of that. And what you're doing in the joint venture agreement between you and them is just identifying, okay, what's the revenue split going to be? Often it's 50-50 between them and you. So that creates a 25% override. And then figure out what the responsibilities are. What are you going to provide? After you've done that, you have them enroll as a white label partner on the IIMFL page. Of course, there's no cost for them to enroll, and then they're plugged in for training and support. And then ultimately what you want to do is help those white label partners produce at least 8 clients a month. Well, why 8? 8 to a week on average is enough that they tend to become proficient. People that and we've talked about this before, people that dabble in things rarely are successful because they never get in a groove. It doesn't become a habit. It's always taking a lot of effort. And so for white label partners, we're looking for those that are going to do more than dabble, that are going to get involved and be able to help at least 8 clients a month to a week. From your perspective, this free money is a big deal. And again, you can see the training on it here, but as long as they're helping 8 clients a month, it's should generate a significant income for you. Free money, free money being defined as money that doesn't have to be repaid and money that doesn't require you to give up ownership of your business. All right, so what I want to do now is make this smaller so we can see the whole thing, and then really focus on the questions or concerns that you have about this. So let me go through, and you can go ahead and type in the Q&A, which is like a chat box of Zoom. So we have quite a few comments I didn't clear out from the pros and cons of the different types of capital. But who has any questions on this? And Des, feel free to ask some of your questions, because I know Des cares so much about her clients, and I admire her for that. And so when she has a client that comes in that doesn't qualify for cash funding on first tranche of financing, we certainly can offer them, and we've talked about this as of Friday, the guaranteed financing. So they definitely will get funding for their loan package. They definitely will have that opportunity to have that added as a new trade line, a primary trade line on their credit profile. But they do have to pay it back, right? And so in general, most clients that come to you and to us are looking for $100,000 or more. And I could only hope and pray that they realize, well, you know that if you borrow money, you're going to have to pay that back, right? You're going to have payments if you borrow money. And so you want to be prepared to educate people, your clients, on these three different sources of capital, and in some cases maybe help them generate some earned income, because you're going to have some people that just don't have any borrowing capacity yet. That doesn't make them ineligible or a poor fit for the Access to Capital program. Just the opposite. We're here to help those that are not fully prepared for a capital raise. That's what we do as technical advisors. All right, so let me clear out some of these other comments. And if you want to type in any questions, comments, or concerns, we're going to get to those. Okay, Joseph's got a good question. And Joseph's one of our top white label partners. He's also a licensed realtor out of Arkansas. So Joseph's got a great point, and it'll frequently happen, is that as you bring on a white label partner, they may say, hey, I want to be an RVP, and that's fine. They can become an RVP. You can address that in your joint venture agreement, whereby they can go out and replicate it, and you get an override of the override. So that's not uncommon. That's encouraged, and you wouldn't lose any income, Joseph. Great question, though. All right, Daryl's asking about support. So we're here to help you, get set up as an RVP if you want. Again, there's no cost, no contract, no risk, but we can help you with that. It's pretty simple, and it really starts with you getting a joint venture agreement set up, and then you start approaching folks and bringing them on to your joint venture agreement, and then submitting them as a white label partner. But our team here we're happy to help you, Daryl, and then of course we have these daily Zooms as well. Let's see. Okay, so we did switch over. So we had tried, and quite honestly, it didn't work well. We tried late last year to go with the 0% financing option for individuals that did not qualify for cash funding for their first tranche of financing. And the 0% financing concept sounds pretty good, of course, but we're not continuing it. So anyone that's enrolled in the 0% obviously will fulfill that. If they already have an agreement and then they complete it, then we'll adhere to that. But going forward, we're using the guaranteed financing in lieu of the 0%. The guaranteed financing has several benefits, one of which is, and we talked about this on Friday's training, it reports on their credit as a positive trade line, and also it removes the burden from you or from us from having to collect those payments. And then for Jeremy, Jeremy was about ready to come hang me by the oak tree, because Jeremy hated the fact with the 0% financing that we were sending out the modules, to the 4 weekly modules, to the clients. So it didn't allow him to maintain the control of the client that he wanted. And Jeremy, I apologize for that. So those are all reasons that we discontinued the 0%, and we're using the guaranteed financing. I think Peggy's question is, can we go back and do that? And no, we're not adding any more clients to the 0%. The guaranteed financing is better. All right, let's see. Des asked, do white label partners need to go through the guaranteed financing lender? No. And so let's address that a little broader. So when clients come into the Access to Capital program, first we're going to try to get them cash funding. That's what everybody would prefer. We have a portal that provides us access to over 30 different lenders. And so most people will get qualified, often from multiple cash funding offers. However, some people don't. And if they don't, then we have guaranteed financing that they can sign up for if they wish. And then that will allow us to go ahead and immediately begin building their loan package, and in 4 weeks or whatever time frame you set, be able to progress. If someone doesn't want to do the guaranteed financing, they don't have to. They may have a better way, or they could just pay it outright. And so that would be true for clients or for white label partners. The guaranteed financing, it's nice because everyone gets approved. There's no credit check. There's no minimum income. Reports on the credit is a new trade line, many benefits. But if someone doesn't want to do that, they're not required to do so. All right. Daryl asks, is the Access to Capital partner responsible for collecting payments? And so I think what Daryl's referencing is on the guaranteed financing, how is that orchestrated? And Daryl, the beauty of that is we have a third-party company. They're freestanding. They handle the payments. If someone doesn't pay, they handle the collections and everything. So no, Daryl, you nor us have to chase down money through the guaranteed financing. Just like we don't, if someone borrowed $100,000 through a program through Wells Fargo, are you and I responsible for collecting for Wells Fargo? Of course not. They're the lender or the extender of credit. They take care of all of that. And then I think the follow-up question Daryl had is, if we have someone on the guaranteed financing, then we just reconcile monthly. Each of you, they're white label partners. You should be scheduling those calls with the compliance department. Once a month, you're reconciling every client that you've enrolled. We want to make sure those clients are being taken care of, that they're progressing, that they're compliant. And then that's also when the commission reconciliation will occur. Because you got to remember, as a white label partner, 99% of the time, you're in control of the money, right? Clients get a cash capital raise, you invoice them, they pay you, you're in control of the money. If they go through the guaranteed financing, now it's a little bit of a different flow. So what happens is on a monthly basis, we'll reconcile the payments that they've made because it pays out as earned. All right, let's see. Antoine asks, the person who wants access to capital and wants to be a regional vice president will have to pay. Well, okay, so you're in control of that, Antoine. If you want to be a regional vice president, which I'm not pushing on, I'm just letting you know that there's 3 sources of income, and some of your clients are going to frankly need help with earned income. And if you don't help them with earned income, some of them are not going to be able to afford to take on debt. Not only would they not be able to qualify for it, if they don't have any earned income or enough earned income, that's their core problem. Now, that doesn't mean that they need to go figure out how to earn enough income to reach their potential. They just need to earn enough income to pay their bills. Once we can pay our bills, then it's so much easier to take on debt. So, but Antoine's question wasn't really that. It was about the split. It's up to you. In your joint venture agreement, Antoine, you're going to dictate, you're going to determine, you're going to control the revenue split that you want with your white label partner. That is up to you. We don't dictate that. And you can really see we're almost taking an arm's length approach to it. We're not going to provide you joint venture agreements to use. It's up to you to use what you want. We're not party to that. That's between you and them. Then you plug them into our system, and then we're off and running. All right, so we covered a bit of a hodgepodge, but let me try to summarize. Today, we talked about free money. And so again, in business, this is not going to be a charity. This is not going to be a welfare model, but there is something that's as close as possible to free money, which is earned income. Because there's only 3 places that money can come from to start or grow a business. Only 3. We can go out and borrow money, which isn't necessarily a bad idea. It's called leverage. OPP, other people's money. OPM, I guess, other people's money. And so debt is okay. We just need to make sure we have a positive expected return on income investment. There's equity, where we're selling some ownership to be able to get an injection of capital that we don't have to pay back. And that often works well for people that either don't qualify for debt, because you do have to qualify for debt using the 3 C's, and or people that want a larger capital raise. But every business, and each of us need to be concentrating on earned income. We need to generate income by selling mufflers, selling muffins, being a white label partner, whatever it is. We need earned income. If we can't earn income, then investors aren't going to be interested. Now, I'm not saying that investors will not invest into a pre-revenue company. That's not true at all. They will, but we ultimately need earned income. A business must have earned income, or it's not a business. It's probably a failed hobby. We talked about how to go about earning extra, how you can help your clients earn extra income while generating quote unquote free money for you. And that's through the RVP role. Doesn't cost anything. They plug in as white label partners on your team, and you can earn a nice side gig income. And we wrapped it up talking about the process to become an RVP. All right. So are there any other questions? And so I know you may have individual questions, and so we can always schedule one-on-ones, and I encourage that, and we love doing that. So, but at a high level, hopefully what we addressed today is a reminder that there's only 3 sources of capital. And the interesting thing is that together as technical advisors, we can help people with all 3 of those. And the third one is especially important for a lot of people, because you'll have some people that come to you and they can't afford debt. They don't have any money, even for the refundable deposit. You know, let's say that we get them the guaranteed financing. And what do we say? That's like $211. I'm pulling from memory, but I think it's like $211 a month. And they say, well, I can't afford that. Okay, then we need to address the root problem. The root problem is, ma'am or sir, you have inadequate earned income. And so let's fix that. And then we can afford to borrow money to reach your potential. And of course, then that would also allow us to improve our attractiveness to equity-based investors. So yes, feel free to schedule one-on-ones for more detailed, individualized discussions. Thank you so much. Have a great day, and we'll see you back tomorrow morning. Bye-bye.